Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second workshop we're having with the Evmos-Covalent Hackathon. Today, we're going to have a presentation on Cosmos On-Chain Data with Rafael from Numia. Pleasure to have you. I'm going to be sending a couple of links in the chat during the talk. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to just raise your hand during the talk. And most of the time, apart from when you're asking questions, that would be great. But everyone who wants to have their camera on, that's great. We love to have an interactive session as much as possible and see everyone's faces in the community. And with that, I'm going to pass straight on to Rafael. There you go.
Thank you very much, Emma. Hello, everyone. Nice meeting you. Nice having everyone here. My name is Rafa. I'm the co-founder of Numia, and we're a new company, right? We're barely fresh, actually. Maybe we're 3 months old or something like that. But the company is essentially a startup in the Cosmos ecosystem, and the problem that we're solving is really we want to bring more data and more insights into the ecosystem as a whole. And before I start sharing my screen, I just wanted to run everybody maybe through a few, formalities. So I'm gonna present first what we're doing for you guys to understand the context and what problems you can solve with Numia and what kind of insights you can get for Evmos. But then I'm going to go into an interactive session where we are going to write a few SQL queries and additionally build a few dashboards so you guys can see how everything works. But what I was saying is it's going to be a fairly interactive session, so feel free to follow. I think this is recorded, and I think it's going to be uploaded somewhere, right, Emma?
Yeah, so it's being filmed and going to be uploaded afterwards.
Okay, great. But the idea is that you learn how to use Numia, how to get insights out of Evmos, and if you have any questions, again, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll try to interactively answer them, and I'll pause a few times to check if there are questions, etc., okay? This is going to be exactly an hour. I planned for that, maybe a little bit less. So yeah, so share my screen now. So we're a company based in Berlin, Germany. We're kind of remote, but we're in Berlin. And we work closely with the Evmos team to fulfill their needs on the data front, insights front, data science front. So we know the ecosystem. We've been in Cosmos for a bit, the whole team. So we know a few people, pretty much the whole ecosystem. We know how chains work. And Numia essentially, and maybe just the outline of the presentation is really pretty much what I mentioned at the beginning. But we started Numia because we, as Cosmos developers, were having this problem. We couldn't get our insights from anywhere. It was really hard. You have to hit our PCs to get some data. You have to rely on their not so stable endpoints. The endpoints are very arbitrary as well. If you want to get very complicated insights, you need to hit like 60 of them. In some cases, we were running queries and hitting like 400 endpoints within like 5 minutes. It was really painful to get insights out of Cosmos chains. And we realized that we had a solution for that, or we could fix it. And that's really the reason why we started Numia. And really our goal is, give the whole ecosystem, I think, and we think our thesis is that the whole ecosystem needs more of these tools to bring in more developers, which will bring more users, which will bring more investors, more TVL, et cetera, right? So we think of Numia as part of that subset of tools and more developer and user tools to give the ecosystem a boost, excuse me. For chains to give them more analytics, insights about what's happening with their chain adoption, more transparency. On the users, basically the same, understanding, we're getting many requests from many users, for instance, to get their transactions for tax purposes. So at the end of the day, we can serve a wide range of audiences, including these four, and these four is what we're going after, essentially. Also validators and relayers, obviously. And how Numia works is basically we are running nodes. We wrote a software essentially that is running on the chain's nodes. And what we do is we index data, we stream data, every incoming block, we automatically stream it to GCP. So we're using Google right now because we'll expand to other systems, but right now we thought it was a good go-to-market strategy at the beginning because it sits really well with first of all, BigQuery, which is a SQL interface that you can access, and I'm going to show you. But you can also connect BigQuery to Google Sheets and Google Data Studio, which we're going to use to build some dashboards today. And we thought, like, it sits really well with the G Suite. Many people use the G Suite. So this is how Numia works right now. But we're thinking a little bit further. We're going to have APIs. We're going to have a dashboard where people can access some arbitrary data. But right now, let's say this is the current version of the product. And just to wrap it up on the product and the company, we're syncing real time. So, I mean, I'm going to put myself on the spot and hope that our node hasn't crashed or something. And I'm going to show the blocks that are incoming essentially. Also something great about Numia is that you can run cross-chain analysis with other chains. So you can write a query, for example, that pulls data from Osmosis and Evmos at the same time. We're going to try to do that as well. And then again, like I was mentioning, it's really easy to connect to the Google products. And additional to that, we also provide services in terms of if you're a company or an investor, or somebody who needs help building these dashboards, we're here to help as well. So just a few examples, connecting to a spreadsheet looks like this. I'm going to show you how that works very, very briefly as well. This is an example of Evmos delegations, Osmos delegation, which would apply the same as ESP. I'm going to show you the Evmos delegation dashboard today, but this is just a way of seeing like the delegations over time, for example, where you can have an interactive dashboard and filter by validator. And here's basically how the SQL interface looks like. And this is the one that we're going to use today. So before I go into the interactive session, I'm going to pause for a second and maybe check if there are questions. And I cannot open the chat. Let me.
So there's one question saying cross-chain analytics among app chains or all EVM chains. I'm not sure if that relates to something.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we only do we basically only do Cosmos chains for now, and we're probably only going to do that for the foreseeable future. And that includes Evmos, right, and any other Cosmos chain. We're indexing currently 6 chains. We're expanding, but we don't index any other EVM chain like Ethereum or Arbitrum or Optimism or Avalanche. We're focusing only on Cosmos chain. So the important thing about it, maybe Covalent's difference with Numia is that Covalent focuses on the EVM layer of Evmos. We focus on the Cosmos layer of Evmos. And that's really important because Evmos actually consists of these 2 layers, right? Every transaction that is submitted at the EVM layer gets wrapped after being confirmed and sent to the Cosmos layer. So we do have some visibility in our layer as of like what's happening on the EVM, but we're not specialists at the EVM layer much, but rather at the Cosmos layers, which is something right now nobody else is doing on Evmos. And that's kind of like where we position ourselves and how this can be really like an adjacent product or a really good add-on to the analysis that you might do with Covalent, for example. So good question, whoever asked that, really good. So app chains refers to Cosmos chains for the ones who don't know, by the way. So the short answer is yes, we do app chains. Okay, so we're going to go into the interactive mode. We're going to use BigQuery to explore the data set first, write our initial queries so that you guys can follow up maybe on the video afterwards and see how you can also start doing that. But okay, so the one thing that you need in order to query the data with Numia is a GCP instance. The good thing about Google Cloud is like anybody can create an account. Self-service is like creating a Gmail account. It's really easy, and they will give you 300 euros or dollars in credits depending on where you are, and that should be definitely enough, for building a few dashboards and running a lot of queries, et cetera, et cetera. So I invite everybody to do that to get started. And the way we're thinking about this, essentially, we see data as a public good. So all of these data sets that you see here, all the chains that we're indexing, some of them are private still on our end. This is our private dashboard, but most of them, Evmos essentially sits out there with Cosmos, Cache, Stride, Stargaze, and Osmosis. So you can access and you can connect any of your Evmos queries to any of those other app chains queries. And the important thing again is that these are public data sets. So you can run any query like I am going to show you from your own GCP instance, and you will get you will see the data essentially. The one thing that you need to do though, when you open up your Google console, your GCP console, is you're gonna land on this dashboard. You're not gonna see anything here. So you basically need to add the data sets. And we have the way you do that is by essentially clicking on add data. And basically you do this option, star a project by name, and you'll get this prompt. And what you need to do is essentially, we have a domain that's called Immaculate. It's a little bit of a meme, by the way. And you need this because essentially when you put this domain, like every GCP account or organization like ours has some sort, this is like your website domain. So every time you want to query our data sets, which are public, you have to specify where are you querying from. So this is what you do. And then you give in the Evmos name of the network, which is this. And once you click star, I already have it. So nothing, there's an error. I think I have a typo here, but in our docs, we have everything. And once you enter the name of the data set, you will see the Evmos data set here on the left pinged. So you don't have to do that to query data, by the way, but if you do it, you'll have it here and you'll be able to explore the tables. So if you click on each one of them, you can preview them, how they look, essentially can know what the columns are. So I definitely suggest you do that. You don't have to, again, to run a query because the data sets are public, but it's definitely something you should be considering. So let's explore the data set. Before I go into the data set within the Numia, I want to also give you a hint on how to do this easy. So I don't know if, for the ones that are familiar with the Cosmos ecosystem, there's this great tool from Cosmos Station, which is one of the top validators in Cosmos, and they have MintScan, which is a block explorer essentially, right? So if you go to the Evmos section, you can see here, they have these transactions. And what I want to show you is that you can use MintScan a lot to understand what the data model looks like, so that you also understand how to query the data out of Numia. So we're going to grab a transaction here. Let's get this contract swap, for example, or no, I want to get a these IBC. Here's an IBC transfer, for example. So we're going to click on it. And MintScan tells you kind of like who the sender is, the receiver, how much was sent, et cetera, et cetera. So this, for example, was sent from Evmos to, I don't know which chain this is, to be honest, but it was definitely, IBC is this protocol in Cosmos where you can send tokens to other networks. So this was definitely sent to another network because we don't see the Evmos prefix on the address. But what I wanted to show you is like, MintScan can help you a lot to understand how to query the data from Numia, because the way we index the data in Numia is by indexing these events that you see here. And if you look, so we know that this is an IBC transfer, right? You have the transaction ID here. We're going to grab that in a second, and we're going to go to run a query to explore the data if it's the same. But here, basically, you see these events that tell you essentially what happened right after this transaction was carried out. There are a bunch of events, and here's, for example, the IBC transfer event that is telling us, it tells us the sender and gives us the receiver. But what about if you want to grab the amount, right? That, for instance, every time in a Cosmos chain, there's an IBC transfer. Basically, there are all of these types of events emitted, and one of them is the send packet. And here we have an event that's called packet data, and here we have essentially all the information about the transaction. So it's basically understanding this schema and this data model will make it really, really easy for you to understand how to query Numia data. So we follow the same underlying schema as the Cosmos SDK. So everything that you see on MintScan, it's a really tool, cool to explore the data so that you can kind of like mirror that in terms of what you're doing with Numia, right? So we're going to grab this transaction ID, and we're going to we're going to do a select all on that transaction ID. And event attributes is a table. So we have, you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4 tables. Most of the data sits at the event attributes table, and most of that data is essentially the data that I showed you, right? Which is all of these events, which is essentially the metadata of the transaction. So that's really what we're looking for. So I'm going to grab the event attributes for this transaction, and let me check, is this the same? Yeah, so this is the same transaction. As you saw, that transaction, I think, was submitted like 2 minutes ago, and let's see if we already indexed it. Great. Oh, no, sorry. Okay, so this is terrible. I just made a mistake, and I'm like running a query against the Cosmos Hub, and it's exactly the thing you shouldn't do, right? I actually need the Evmos data set. So beware that you're querying the right data set, super important, not like me. Don't be like me. So this is the Evmos data set. The same table, as you can see, the good thing about the schemas that we use is that all of them have the same underlying table. So if you do one query on one chain, you'll be able to kind of like put that query on another chain, right? So now you can see we have data. It's the same transaction ID that we just saw. So we're basically indexing the data real time. You know, where this is exactly the same block that we're looking at. And here you can basically see all of the same events that I was showing you on Minscan. And the way the Cosmos SDK structures, I see a question, I'm going to go there in a second. I'm just going to wrap this up, but the way we structure the data, again, is really similar to the way, well, we actually just take the Cosmos SDK, really. So what that means is like we sort of index the data in a key value with this key value based model, where we don't have a column for all of the different events, because that would make it impossible for us. Like imagine there's a chain submitting new events, but our system doesn't really have any idea what they are. So we essentially use the same column for all of the event types. And just making sure that you guys understand this, the event type is essentially the first level of the transaction metadata. So this really tells me sort of like what event happened, what event was triggered by the SDK. And the attributes are the one that give me the real values of the metadata, right? The attribute keys are these. So if you go back to Numia, you can see the attribute keys here, right? And then the attribute values are these, right? So we see the, let me go to the IBC transfer event that we were looking at. So here it is. So IBC transfer, the attribute key is sender, and the value is essentially this address right here. So if you go to Minscan, just to explore it, IBC transfer, sender, and if you look, that is essentially this one, right? So again, Minscan is really good for you to kind of like understand, look at a transaction, and that will make just like your life easier in terms of like how to query data, what event types to look for when you query, and that is really important. So yeah, let me see, okay. Definitely not a question, just emoji, nice. But this is essentially the basics of Numia. And again, you know, my tip would be get familiar with the Cosmos data model. It's going to be, you know, way easier to run queries, but at the same time, running queries will make it easier for you to get familiar with the data model, right? So I also got another question. Are event types different for different app chains? Great question. The short answer is no, but yes. So the way the Cosmos SDK works is the SDK essentially has specific modules, right? That allow the users to submit specific transactions. Like there's the module transfer, that allows me to send tokens to anybody else. There's the module IBC and other different modules that essentially all of the chains have in common. They can, since the software, the Cosmos SDK is open source, they can change those modules, but most of them don't. So, you know, for the Cosmos standard events like an IBC transfer, a normal transfer, a delegation, which basically every Cosmos chain has, claiming rewards, all of the standard things that you can do across any chains, will have the same events. However, there are some events that the chain specifically tag on their end and only fire when specific things on their chain happen, right? To give you an example, you will see, if you query Osmosis, you will see swap for exact amount in events that, you don't have that on any other chain, right? They created their own module to create their own DEX. So depending on the chain, you will have some extra event and different event types. But the underlying Cosmos transactions that every chain has are essentially the same. So if you do an IBC transfer event type query across all of chains, you should be able to find it everywhere, essentially, as long as they are obviously using IBC or have enabled IBC, right? Okay, so we're gonna run now, we're gonna run, let me see what I had planned here. I'm gonna run a first query from scratch, so you guys can like think a little bit or see how we think about like running a query or what it takes and how to understand really how to extract the data, because you have to do a few joins here that are important. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna count or we're gonna get a count of the transaction senders. We're gonna get a table of the transaction senders, so users, and how many transactions they have sent or they have done, regardless of what or which one, in the past 7 days. So again, for that, you need to understand the data model and everything, but I'm gonna walk you through it. So every transaction, the way Cosmos works is basically every time a user submits a transaction, what you're doing really with when you hit like send or something, you're like sending a message to the network. You're telling the network, hey, I am user 123 with my private key. I can corroborate that. I'm signing this transaction with this specific message. And a message is like the order, like what you tell the chain how and what to execute, right? And how to change the different states of the network. And those messages are really tell us what's really happening at a very high level with every single transaction, essentially. So here, for example, we can see every transaction that you see in Cosmos that is submitted by a user will have this event type that's called message that has a few attributes. For instance, it's telling me which SDK module it's using, which is the transfer module, and it's telling me who signs it. So the message sender is always the person who signs it, right? So this is exactly what we want to grab to understand how many transactions users are signing. So we're going to tell the database, okay, so give me, we're going to do a select all first. The where clause is where the real interesting things are. So we're going to tell Numia database essentially, okay, so I need event type to be message, and I need attribute key to be sender. Right? Okay, great. So I'm gonna do something also very important that I want to mention is that when you export the data sets, make sure that you know which, click here on details and look at this cluster by columns, because you need to use this on your query clusters to make your queries more performant and also to scan less data so that Google doesn't charge you more, because Google charges you for the amount of data you scan per query, essentially, right? So if you're using the credits, obviously, so that you don't consume the credits that fast. But so we're gonna, just make sure that we're getting the right data here. So right, I'm gonna do this, and I can see that, okay, perfect. So I'm definitely getting transaction IDs and I'm getting message senders. So it looks like the data is what we want, right? As you can see, so what I'm gonna do in this query as well is I'm gonna group this by date, so that I can have a nice chart that tells me like active users in Cosmos over time. But I see that in this table, I don't have like the block timestamp, which is what counts, right? Remember on Cosmos, you have the transactions don't have a timestamp per se. They have, they're only confirmed once the block they're part of is confirmed by the network. So what you need is the block timestamp. So we're going to do a join with the blocks table, because here's what we have to block timestamp. And so the way we're going to do that, so we're going to say, and sorry, by the way, when you run the queries, you actually need to make sure that you put this prefix right here. I don't need to, because I'm within the organization that we run, but I'm going to use this for the sake of, you being able to follow up in the recording. So we're going to say, okay, so again, Evmos network, and we want the blocks table. When you do a join, you need an alias for each table. So we're going to say, okay, so give me, I need to join, I need to join on block height equals event attribute. Okay, so basically this is where I need to join, because again, I do have the block height in the event attributes table with all the transaction data. So that's what I'm going to use to join. There is a caveat here, which is super simple to, it turns out right now we're going to change that, but right now the data types of these two are different. But what you can do is you can just cast one of them to make sure that your join works. And we're going to cast it as a number. This is the way you do it on BigQuery essentially. And it's still complaining. Oh, I'm missing the word join, obviously. Right. And it's still complaining because I need the word as. So now it should work. Okay, so now we're joining with block height. And what we're going to do is we're going to also now just we're going to select all still, just for the sake of the example, and we're going to only select the block timestamp, just to make sure that we're getting it. Okay, so here it is at the end. Looks good, perfect. Okay, awesome. So we have the block timestamp right now, and what we want to do is have a nice chart, maybe that allows us to kind of see the active users over time for the last 7 days, right? So okay, so what do we have to do next? Okay, so what we want is to count this column here, because here is where we have the different senders, right? The different users, different signed messengers. So we're going to tell the database to count the attribute value column. We're going to put the date here at the top. And right now, I don't want to group by timestamp, because that would be too granular. So I'm just going to group by date. There's this night function that just wrap around whole date, that you wrap around the corresponding timestamp. So we're going to do that. We're going to count the attribute value. And something really important with this, and here's maybe something really nice for you to understand the caveats between our layer of data and the covalent layer of data. Evmos, when a user signs a transaction, basically the Evmos chain is telling us that, is giving us both addresses, actually, the hex address and the batch32 address. However, this is the same user. So for example, if you go to MintScan, right, and I look up this address right here, and in MintScan, you can change it to the hex address. So 29F is the end of that one. Oh, it's different. Oh, but it's different transactions, actually. So yeah, obviously, it's different transactions, but on the same transaction, you will see sometimes that these essentially are signed sometimes at the EVM layer or with the Evmos layers. I just wanted to make the point that these are different, but at the same time, Evmos should actually only display one. Actually, I'm not sure, to be honest. So let's check that. It's actually very interesting to know. So I'm just going to run the same transaction. Actually really interesting to know that. So for the sake of my curiosity, give me a second. And this is important for the analysis that we're running. So you see sometimes that you also need to be cautious in terms of like the caveats of how things are tagged, how things are sent, how the chain is emitting these events, etc. So we're going to grab this transaction and we are going to ask it, basically just give it the same condition that we're using here, just to make sure if Evmos is emitting both the hex address and the batch 32 or just one. So let's see that. Okay, it seems this one we haven't indexed yet. Let's give it another try. Okay, so it looks like it's not through yet. I might check in a bit, but this is something interesting to note. Again, I'm not sure if Evmos is tagging both the hex and the batch 32, but we can figure that at the end. Let's just, for the sake of the time, let's keep on. So we're gonna count the different addresses. And the way we're doing a distinct here is because I want unique addresses, right? By date, right? If you want the number of transactions, you actually can do a count all. This will give you essentially the number of rows that you see here on this table, which is equivalent to the number of messages being signed. But in this case, again, I want unique active users on a daily basis. And now the last thing we need to do is group by, sorry for the mess here with caps, and I didn't realize I had the caps on, but we're going to group by the same column up here, right? And we're gonna also sort by date. Let's say descending to get the last. And wait a second. So I'm also gonna tell Numia that I want the last 7 days, right? So you can do something like this between October, or what is it, November the 4th and let's say today. All right. So I'm gonna order by the first column, descending, and let's see what we get. And here you see basically super simple table. I haven't said the column names, but this is essentially how you would get the number of active users in Cosmos, in Evmos, signing the number of unique addresses active on a daily basis, really. And obviously, if you want to give your columns a name, obviously, state, and this one as users. And so let's do understand it's complaining for some reason, but it shouldn't. Yeah. Now, actually, what I'm going to do to show you. Okay, what I'm going to do actually is just show you how to export super easily something like this to a Google spreadsheet. So let's do this since August 1st, now a wider range of data. So run the query. Basically, this is what you'll get, right? So let's go ahead and build. Well, the first thing you can do is actually you can export directly to a Google Sheet from here. And again, this is one of the nice parts of Google, the G Suite. But this is really easy, so you guys can go ahead and try it. But something I'm going to do is a little bit more, is we're going to build a dashboard on Google Data Studio for this, which is a little bit more interactive. And I already have some examples here, but I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. So let's add a page here. I'm going to come back to this nice dashboard here. But essentially what you do on Google Data Studio is you add a data source, you select BigQuery, you select the project that you were using, and use actually custom query, super important. You select the project that you're using to make sure that Google knows where to kind of like query from. And then you can input the data right here. Google Data Studio also enables for you to have like date range parameters. So I could, in theory, put parameters in the query, and you can build different filters and insert them super dynamically, which is super nice. But for the sake of time, we're not going to do that right now. But once you have your query here, you add it. And now I have, I'm going to call this page hackathon. And now I have essentially a new data source here. I can change the name and say active users Evmos to know exactly what I'm using. So I have my data sets here, and really easy what you can do in Google Data Studio is like, okay, let's add a chart, right? Let's say we want to add a simple line chart of active users over time. So it automatically picked the active users query, but like you have to configure it properly, essentially. So let's see. What we want is on a record count, but we actually want the users as a metric, right? As a line it's going to show here. The date range is the date already. The dimension is, the date, which is essentially what we want here at the bottom. And you can add different breakdowns in Google Data Studio and stuff, but this is essentially how it would look like. For instance, by the way, beware, we're still in beta, so you're gonna see a few things strange sometimes. I need to check like why there's missing data here. Super interesting, so duly noted. But you should be able, like, as you can see, most of the data is here. This will give you, but just wanted to show you very easily how you can, build a simple dashboard of active users in Evmos over time, right? And again, the difference between Covalent, for instance, and a dashboard like this is if you only build a dashboard like this at the EVM data level, you're only gonna get transactions and active users that do transactions with MetaMask, right, on diffusion, on EVMs, etc. You're not gonna get transactions about delegations, IBC transfer, etc. So at the Cosmos layer, it was you really understand the full activity and the full picture of Evmos, right? Although most of the activity is happening at the EVM and we don't index that data, and there are great tools like Covalent for that, we do have like the full picture at the Cosmos layer, essentially. Because again, at the active user level, at least, we will see the users because every transaction from the EVM gets passed to Cosmos. But if you want more data about the EVM transaction, you definitely need tools like Covalent, etc. So also showing you a few examples of other things that we built. So this is essentially the same dashboard that we built before. This and here is something more interactive about the delegations, for example. So here we built a dashboard that essentially does exactly the same thing that I showed you. It's a Google query. And what we're doing is we're extracting the delegation events to understand how many users and how much they're delegating, right? So here, for example, you can see the delegations over time for all the validators. And we've written the query in such a way that we also have the validators. So the raw data doesn't necessarily has to be aggregated at the end for each of these dashboards. You can aggregate it here at the on Google Data Studio, right? For example, so here, let's go to Minscan and grab a validator address. Let's say Polychain. Okay, they're the top. They're the top. Let's take Friends. Somebody else. We're gonna grab Friends operator address, which I think is the one that we need. Excuse me. Right. And so we're gonna see if we can filter only by that specific validator. It shows up here, and this will get us the delegations for Friends over time. So here we're seeing, it's super interesting for a validator to understand a little bit more about the users, who is delegating to them, how much, et cetera, et cetera. This is an example, again, of something interactive that you can build. And the great thing about Google Data Studio as well, I mean, they've done a pretty good job, I must say, but it's so easy to use, and it's just like pivot tables on Google Sheets or Excel. So that's a really good advantage. If you're familiar with that kind of data sets or how to use those tools, you'll be super familiar with these. But yeah, so I've been speaking for a while, so I'm going to pause and just make sure there are any questions. Raise your hand if you want to say something. I can, we can open up for an interactive question or something if you guys have any. I'll give you guys 30 seconds, and if not, I'll continue.
Feel free to message the questions as well, unless you want to turn on your microphone and ask. We got one here. It says, is the data returned from the Cosmos layer a superset of the data from the EVM layer?
Good question. So you could see it like that, because at the EVM layer, there are things that you're not going to be able to see. Everything related to the core Cosmos modules, like IBC transfers, delegations, votes on governance, reward claims from delegation rewards, etc. You won't see it at the EVM layer, but you will also see these EVM transactions that you see here. Actually, you will also get them on Numia, because if you go to the JSON, the Evmos team has programmed Cosmos or Ethermint and their chain in such a way that Ethermint is essentially the Ethereum module within the Cosmos SDK. So whenever there's an EVM transaction, we also get visibility about it here. Again, we don't get all the contract data and all of that, but we do get a bunch of stuff like some logs, for example, on the transaction. Like we get the hash, for example, the gas use at the EVM level, etc. And this one's got reverted, so a little bit more about it. So we do kind of like at the Cosmos layer know way more about what the EVM layer knows about Cosmos. The EVM layer actually doesn't know anything about Cosmos or the underlying Cosmos transaction. So you could say it's a superset, but I would say they're rather complementary, because the Cosmos dataset doesn't yet fully have all of the EVM data, right? So if you really want to get into the Cosmos layer and the delegations and the specific Cosmos events, definitely you need Numia. But if you want to get at the contract level interactions, gas, and everything that happens at the EVM layer, a tool like Covalent would definitely be better. I hope that answers your question. Cool.
Got another question
okay,
here.
I can read it.
Lovely.
Yeah, perfect. How do you think the current market conditions and events are going to affect you and the Cosmos ecosystem? Well, it's a little bit off topic, I must say, but it's a fair one, because we're here for Evmos, and Evmos is in Cosmos, I guess. But the way we see it at Numia is Cosmos is so early, and there is so much potential. Despite the bear market, despite the Terra collapse, Cosmos is growing in active users. And I think the resilience of the ecosystem and the growth we're seeing in developers coming in, we're also Numia is also part of an incubator program, and we're seeing so many chains coming. It's crazy how much growth there is. So honestly, I know I live a little bit of a Cosmos bubble, and I'm extremely optimistic, but and I feel a little bit like it feels like Cosmos is to some degree, and not about prices and tokens and everything, but it feels from the perspective of momentum and like developer activity and new chains, it feels like we're immune to this like mess that's happening outside, right? And again, I don't want to get too much off topic, but we're builders, friend. We build in all weathers. I love that. Whoever said that, I think that's genius. Cool. I'm gonna keep on. But yeah, that's my perspective basically. So I just wanna, we only have 10 minutes, and I actually wanted to have time for like Q&A. Thank you very much, guys, for the comments. Appreciate that. The last thing maybe I wanted to show you is maybe just a super simple report on retention. And the reason I want to do that is because our data arms, or research arm, and our analytics arm, because we have so many things coming, by the way, but this is about data. So the analytics arm and the things that we're doing here, we also, one of our goals is to bring a little bit of the web analytics 2.0 approach. in the sense that, we realize in Cosmos and in Evmos, like, talking to the diffusion team, for example, and other teams, like nobody really is doing the standard web analytics 2.0 stuff, like retention, like, hey, tell me, who am I retaining? Why am I retaining users? Tell me, how do they engage, like sessions per user? And all of these KPIs and all of these apps in Web 2.0 we're tracking. I feel that the ecosystem in Web3 is like sometimes very techy, too low level, and we forget about these higher level things. So I wanted to show you one of the examples that we have that we're bringing from Web 2, because we also want to give a little bit of this more KPI analytics driven decision making at the product level. And I think that that's a cultural thing more than anything else. So I'm going to, and we already have that query written, by the way, so I'm not going to bore you right in the query. But so we have this retention query, which is beautifully written by one of our analysts. And basically it's pulling data from Osmosis now. So the only thing I need to do is replace this with the, so this is also nice. So you guys can see how easy it is to write a query for one chain and then just do it for the other one, right? So we're just gonna change the Osmosis database or data set for the Evmos one. And we're gonna grab this data set. So let's see how, remember, so, oh, it was really fast, actually. I wasn't expecting that. Really nice. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this. I'm gonna, I'm not gonna, we don't have much time, so I don't want to get into the weeds of the query, but I'm gonna show you the end result. So we're gonna grab this and we are going to, it's only 28 rows. So we are going to copy that to clipboard actually. And we're going to create a new sheet. We're gonna paste it here. And we're gonna say Evmos demo. And what we're gonna do is we are going to go back to Google Data Studio to this page here. So I'm gonna delete this for a second and create a new one. So we're gonna add data and we're gonna grab this spreadsheet right here. So basically, sorry that I'm moving a little bit fast, but again, for the sake of time. So we're gonna say, hey, I want a Google Sheet as a data source. And let me see if I can, let me see if I just need to paste the whole thing. I'm not sure actually. Sorry. See? Oh no, it's here actually. You can see it. Okay, so we're gonna grab this and we're gonna tell the range that we're using. So it's A1 to D. So that's A1 to D. And let's click on add. Okay, so we have it here. No, wait, where is it here? Evmos demo spreadsheet. Okay, so we see the column names here. So what I want to show you is we're going to add a chart, sorry. And it's going to be a pivot table colored. And I don't think it needs to be that big actually. So we're going to do this. I don't know, for the ones who are familiar with retention and cohort analysis, by the way. I just realized I might have needed to do something different at the query level. But let's see, it does work out. So what I want is essentially understand how many users were acquired or what the retention is for different cohorts, monthly cohorts. So from the users that did their first transaction on a specific month that you see here on the left, how many of them are essentially coming back month after month. So we're gonna do that by, the raw dimension should be the cohort month. Yes. We don't need any date range dimension actually, I think. The metric is not is the percentage of users that are coming back. Let's see if this works. Perfect. So, and the cohort month, the month number, interesting. So, it's crazy. Google Data Studio thinks that this columns here are actually like, basically what I want here is the first month, the second month, the third month, the fourth month, which is exactly what I have in the data set. I want to understand how many users came back the first month, the second one, et cetera, et cetera. But like Google is understanding them as the date. So it's like telling me that the first month is January, February, and so on. So this one doesn't really look that nice, but just to illustrate my point, I'm still gonna leave it like this. So let's see. No, wait. We're gonna sort by cohort month, ascending, and the column we're gonna month number ascending as well. So again, this should be first month, second month, third month, fourth month, fifth month, 6 months, right? Since the network was actually relaunched at the end of April, we don't count April users here, by the way. But essentially, and I need to check, there might be, we haven't fully, there's like, I think we started the indexing of Evmos like sometime like in May. So there might be something weird, but all of the blocks are from June onwards are 100% there. We're gonna add all these nuances to the docs actually, but again, we're still in beta. We're still like looking at what works and whatnot, but this, I am 100% sure that data is correct starting June. But for example, what this analysis tells you and is basically from the users that we acquired or that Evmos acquired in July, 44% returned the first month, which is August. Again, this is, Google Data Studio is playing against me here, but like the first month, which is August after July, 44% of them came back. Second 2 months after that, the same July cohort, the same users that Evmos acquired on July, 33% of them came back, right? And normally these cohort analysis like keep going down with time actually, because like more and more users do not come back. It's just a standard kind of like convergence of the data sets. But this is in we ran a few for osmosis and the hub, for instance. Evmos has been active only for 6 months now, so you get a smaller chart. But stuff like this is, again, just to show a little bit of the culture that we want to bring in, is like, hey, we need to think more like Web 2.0 sometimes. We need to think a little bit more about engagement, retention, users. So we're going to be pushing a lot of more reports, more queries, more docs on all of this that have that alignment, that perspective, right? And I just wanted to share a little bit about that, right? But yeah, I think, we have 4 minutes and I want to open up for the last questions, but I hope, this was illustrative enough to understand how you guys can get started with Evmos data, how to run your first queries, start answering, key business questions, build real-time dashboards as we're syncing real-time data. And, in the next few months, we have a lot coming in, by the way, especially making sure that the system is robust, that all of the data is there. And we're going to open source a few reports where we can like monitor everything so that people also know if there's data missing or something. Right now, I hope in a few months that's not the case at all, right? Obviously, but so that there's more transparency and everybody knows exactly how things are going. So yeah, again, I'm going to open up for questions the last 3 minutes, but other than that, I thank you all for your attention, your time, and it looks like the number of participants remained fairly constant. So I hope it didn't bore you, and again, super grateful for the time you guys have given Numia here and the attention. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Oh my God, that's so nice. So I wanted to thank you to Rafael. And hello, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, I was totally rocked by Mac. So I'm using Mac and with a Samsung Buzz, and I guess they don't like each other. But anyway, thank you for the workshop, Rafael. Emma needed to quickly go to other programs, so I quickly jump in to wrapping up the session. Thank you for the amazing workshop. Before finishing the workshop, I wanted to suggest everyone being on the camera so that we can take a photo together. So guys, if you're still there, can you perhaps turn on your camera? Come on, Anons, please. I can see Living there. Oh my God, Living, I love your background image. Oh,
I
don't
feel
want
like
to
a
get
noob.
dogs.
I feel like a noob with background images. I'm really terrible at that. I mean, you should get something like a Numia logo or something like that.
No worries. I mean, apparently we have a lot of unknowns who doesn't want to get dogs. So my solution gonna be I take a photo and I'm gonna put random. Oh, so can you put some of your favorite emojis there? So they're like, you don't need to show your face, but it's gonna be showing like your a little of like love for Rafael. And we're gonna take photo in few seconds, everyone.
This is what we use as Numia emojis.
Yeah, oh, that's good. So everyone, welcome. How to say it? Thank you for being in the workshop today. This is like Friday evening. You must love Rafael so much to stay till this long, but that's an amazing session. Everyone, please stay tuned. And next week, we're going to start daily quiz session with a hackathon. And if you are answering those quiz, you're going to be climbing up the leaderboard and some prizes going to be waiting for you as well. So please stay tuned and we will see you next week. Everyone, cheese.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, wait, there's a picture. Sorry.
Yes, I was like taking a photo of us. 1 second. Smile. Thank you. Thank you very much. Everyone have a great weekend and see you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.